Hello, welcome back to Sharks Happen. My name is Hal. I am your host, going over shark attacks from the 1900s till present, mostly large sharks. I'm going to get started over at Terramar Beach, that's in California. The date, August 25th, 2009. Bethany Edmund, she is 22 years old. She's a certified diver. She surfs, she spearfishes. Well, this day she's out and she's swimming and she's taking photos with her camera. She has a new underwater camera and she's taking photos. She was out there about 10 minutes in the water, about 250 to 300 yards from shore. And there's a couple of swimmers that are right by her when suddenly a fish jumps. And she says it was about a 14-inch sea bass that jumped. She tried to take a photo of it, but probably missed it. Once the fish is jumping, you missed your chance. But the other two swimmers saw it also, and she continued swimming, and a minute later she felt a pain in her right foot, and she didn't think anything of it. She was swimming. It was about 8 to 10 feet, like I said, 250, 300 yards, and 8 to 10 feet deep over coral. She's over a reef. So she was thinking that she just scraped her foot on the reef, and she keeps on swimming. She gets a little further out, and then she feels a pain on her right leg, and the same type of pain that she had on her foot. And then suddenly she says that she's trying to catch a wave, and now something's pulling her by her leg back down under the water. She thinks that it's the other two swimmers, but when she pops up her head, she sees that that they're 10 feet away from her. So she goes ahead and just swims herself to shore. Doesn't report the accident, reports it the next day. I haven't seen that she went to the hospital. I did see photos of these bites, but you know, it's reported that it's a 5 to 6 foot juvenile great white that bit her. I ought to think it would have ripped into her pretty good in her legs, but I can't see that it, you know, did any kind of cutting on her. They took photos of her wound and one of the places that she reported to and sent it around to find out what it was that bit her. But another strange attack, because I'm wondering if they have like 7 gills out there or something like that that's known to bite people, but doesn't have the strength to go through a wetsuit very much to be able to do much damage. Just strange, because she's swimming along, and when she was hit in the leg that second time, it thrust her up out of the water about a foot. So, I mean, you get hit by a shark and you're not going to report it that day. It's a very odd story. I'll put in the description a link to the story that has a picture. I don't know that it's an old picture. That's the thing, is it looks like just like indentations where teeth would try to go in, but they didn't. So I'll put that link in the description. We're going to put this down as an attack, not an attempt to predate. But I'm not even sure that this is, you know, one of the big sharks that are going to go after people and do a lot of damage. So that's our story of Bethany Edmund. You know, we're going to head over to Ormond Beach, that is in Florida, and the date is October 31st of 2020. Jordan Hooper, he is 17 years old. He is out doing some surfing. He had lost his surfboard, and he is swimming from shore, between shore and a sandbar, to go retrieve his board. So the waves took his board out. He is swimming out to get him. He's in about waist deep water, and it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and something clamps down on his leg. Very hard bite. He said it all the way down to the bone. The back of his leg got the worst of it. It was his right leg, I do believe. They don't explain whether it was upper or lower leg, only that he had to get that sewn up. It was damage done by a 6 to 7 foot blacktip shark. Most of those attacks over there are going to be your blacktips, your spinners, and you know, you'll have your occasional bulls and probably lemon sharks, I would think, and maybe once in a while a rare hammer attack in those Florida waters. So especially along that coast where they're doing all that surfing, that's where all the food for the blacktips and those spinners are, and they come in, their food actually comes in, and they come in to mate at the same time that the summer hits for the people to use the water. So you got most of the sharks are there when most of the people are there, and that's going to happen. So this is our story of Jordan Hooper, 17, an attack, not an attempt to predate, by a 6 to 7 foot blacktip shark. You know, we're going to head over to Moonstone Beach, that is in California. The date is October 17th of 1980. Curt, Vikan, he is 19 years old. He and a couple friends are out doing some morning surfing. He's about 100 yards from shore. He's taken one wave in only so far, and he sees a wave that's rolling down towards them, and he tells his buddies he's going to paddle over and catch this awesome wave. So he starts paddling over. He's about 100 yards from shore. It's 9:30 in the morning, and he's in 6 to 12 foot deep water with nothing but sandy bottom under him. There's no vegetation, no darkness, nothing. It's just a sandy bottom. So 6 to 12 feet, he could probably see the bottom pretty good, unless it's real churned up. But he's got his feet up. So he's paddling, laying on his board, and he's paddling. His feet are up, so his legs are at a 90-degree angle, keeping his feet up in the air, which I would do too. And suddenly the board is ripped out from under him, and he doesn't know what happened. He turns around to look, and a great white shark has his board, about a 4 to 5 meter great white shark, so 14 to 17 foot great white shark, got his board out of the water, and it's just thrashing it all around. Now he's connected to the board by his leash. He yelled at his friends, "Shark, there's a great white shark, get out of here." And the shark grabs his board, and now the shark gets in the water and starts to swim. Well, he's still connected by the leash, and now he's hit multiple times by the tail. He gets hit 2 or 3 times by the tail as the shark is swimming before the shark finally spits out his board. Curt goes ahead, gets on the board as fast as he can, and paddles as fast as he can into shore. He ends up with no injuries. Even the tail that hit him didn't do any damage to him. So thankfully he gets out of this where the shark took his board without doing any damage to him and just went to town on it. There's damage to both sides of the front of the board, so it probably had the front of its board in its mouth and was doing a number on it. So, you know, he was kind of paddling right into the shark with what it looked like, and it just took it right out from under him. But it was probably one of those high-speed attacks where you aren't even going to be able to see that shark. You know, a shark moving 20 miles an hour, where you have water blocking the view of it. If it's moving that fast, you're probably not even going to see it. It reminds me of Bob Bartle with Lee Warner, who's up at the top, as Bob Bartle's underneath him, and that shark came and grabbed Bob so quick that he wasn't even sure that he had seen a shark. He felt it, but he didn't see it. So they're really moving when they're doing those attacks, and it sounds like that's what happened to Curt. An attack, not an attempt to predate, not even on the board, by a 14 to 17 foot great white shark. Okay, now we're going to head out to Paradise Bay, and that is in Maui, Hawaii, and the date is March 14th of 1993. Roddy Lewis, he is 35 years old. He and a friend John, they are out doing some surfing. They're paddling out from the shore. They're not even 100 yards out. They're paddling through, I guess, a debris field, and they get out past that, and suddenly Roddy had said that he was paddling feeling invincible, and suddenly he felt a clamping on his leg. He says he turned around to look, and he saw the white underbelly of a shark, and he said the shark actually came up and bit him kind of upside down. So the shark came up upside down and bit him in the leg. So he's sitting there and he's holding onto his board. This shark is trying to drag him under the water, and he's hanging onto his board, so the shark lets go and goes up further and grabs his leg up higher and bites him again and starts shaking him violently. He's able to break his way free and paddles his way to shore. Friends put a tourniquet on him, and it said that he would loosen it 1 minute every 10 minutes to be able to prevent more tissue damage in the area that's already there. I had never heard of that before, but that was taken care of with his leg. He ends up going in. He had a 14-inch gash, 2 14-inch gashes to his, I believe it's his right calf, and then on his thigh he had a 4-inch gash on his thigh from the second bite from this. Turns out to be a 10-foot tiger shark. They did get, I had mentioned before how I rarely hear about tooth fragments. They got a tooth fragment out of his ankle. So Roddy had a tooth fragment in his ankle, and they ended up determining that that was from a 10-foot tiger shark, and sure enough, they put out the baited barrel and caught a shark. Actually, they didn't catch the shark. The shark got tangled up in the line and ended up on the beach, and it actually had the actual chipped tooth that piece of tooth fits right into. So they actually caught the shark that bit Roddy. Which is, you know, it's just crazy to be able to catch the actual shark that bit him when there's tons of sharks out there, but it seems that they did, seeing as they had the tooth and they could match it up. That's a perfect identifier. So 10-foot tiger shark, we're going to put this down as an attack, not an attempt to predate by a 10-foot tiger shark. We're going to head over to the wreck of the Dunraven. That is at Ras Mohammed Park in Egypt, and the date is November 6th of 2003. Igor Federov, he is 31 years old, and he is one of 6 people that have done a dive. They went diving, they all surfaced and went back onto the boat, and 4 of them decided that they were going to go snorkeling. One of them's Igor, his wife, and a friend and another woman. So the 4 of them go back into the water. Igor leads the way. They get into the water. They're out snorkeling, and a shark shows up, and this shark is acting completely intimidating to them, going within inches of the divers. So first, Igor's wife was the first one. She got back to the boat in such a hurry and up and into the boat, and then the second person out was Igor's friend, and he got himself up on the boat. When he turned around to help the other woman up out of the water, the shark had gone down underneath her, and then Igor didn't know any of this was going on. He was elsewhere. He's about 300 to 350 yards from shore, in 35 or 32 meter deep water, so you're talking 100-foot deep water. And he's snorkeling, he's at the top of the surface when suddenly his swim fin is bitten, and he turns and looks, and there's a shark. It's an Oceanic white-tip shark, a 2.5 meter Oceanic white-tip shark. And so you're talking 7-footer there that's got him by the foot, and he's able to get his swim fin released and start swimming his way back to the boat. Now the shark is with him, and it's swimming around him, circling him, and attacking him at different spots in the swim back to the boat. And he's almost back to the boat, and he's wearing a computer device on his wrist and almost up to his elbow, and he's bit in the elbow. So the shark actually got a hold of him, and he ends up bit and gets back up into the boat. Right when he's back by the boat, that's basically when he was bitten. They get him up onto the boat and get him in and get him help. He ended up with the teeth marks and then superficial wounds from the teeth, so they're thinking that it didn't bite down on him, that he kind of got his elbow just stuck in the teeth when it might have been turning, but that it didn't clamp down like it could have, or probably would have been a lot more damage. So Igor gets out of this one very luckily. You do not want to get with a 7-foot Oceanic white tip that is in a mood to do some damage, because it will do some damage. It'll thoroughly do you in, especially usually when you run into them, you're in deep water. A lot of times, like Igor, he was away from the boat. He's lucky he made it back to that boat. 7-foot Oceanic white tip is a nightmare to have to deal with, to try to swim back to a boat, as far as I'm concerned. So we'll put this down as an attack, not an attempt to predate, by a 7-foot Oceanic white tip. Okay, now we'll finish out our unprovoked attacks over at Bocan Canal. That is Reunion Island, and the date is June 15th of 2011. Eddy Auber, he is out doing some surfing. There's dozens of people on shore. It's 5:30 in the afternoon. Eddy is 300 yards from shore, maybe a little bit further out than that, 330 yards, and people on the shore see him start waving, and he is in distress. Then they say they see multiple sharks around him, so he's being attacked. He's yelling for help. Everybody sees him, but nobody's going to his aid right away. Finally, a few surfers get over there, but this is after he's been attacked multiple times. They bring his body in. He ended up with one arm, I believe it was his left arm, was removed completely, and then he had a bite to his hip that was very deep, and then they had a category 5 bite also to his side, to its torso, and they categorize that as the worst shark bite there is. I don't know about these shark bite categories. This is the first time I'm seeing that, so I'm going to have to look into these categories and see what each of them mean. I'm thinking that a category 5 is complete removal of what was being bitten, so that's what I'm thinking on this one. I'm going to put this down as an attack, an attempt to predate. They did find the bite to the board. It was 20 centimeters across, pretty rounded. Looks like it would be a decent sized bull shark, and maybe a smaller juvenile great white. But I would put this one towards a bull shark, just with the way that it was going at him, biting his arm off, biting him in the hip. I mean, if it was the same shark, it could have been multiple sharks, in which case I definitely think it was a bull shark. So we're going to put this down as an attack, attempt to predate. I think a bull shark, but we'll keep that unknown for now. Okay, now before we finish out the rest of the show, with you don't hear that every day, I wanted to get into, I did look up this Johnson bag. Some of them called it a Johnson Shark bag, Johnson Shark screen I had seen. And my research going through all my old newspaper things, I can't find much on any actual results from these bags. But I do see that in the explanation of the bags themselves, they say that they're good with dark colors, but not reflections, and not with bright colors. And what that brings me back to is H. David Baldrige talking about, the Yum Yum Yellow, which is orange and yellow. The orange that we use for life jackets and things like that, that counts as that yellow. So orange and yellow, or Yum Yum Yellow. But when they did the testing for the colors, it wasn't that black wasn't bit, it was that black was bit the least. So it gets bit. And if that's the case, that they were relying on the color of the thing, well, I'd say it doesn't work right there, because it isn't going to matter. It won't be bit as much. It won't be bit as actively as a brighter color, but it still gets bit. So it's not a protecting against anything if it's not keeping the sharks from biting you. And I don't think color is going to do it. I did see that they had another deterrent out there that you're supposed to try to get it into the shark's mouth. So the shark has to be open mouth by you for you to get this deterrent in there, and I'm going to have to look into that one. I did look in a little bit, like I said, to the Shark Stop where it says, but I got to look into that one a little bit more, because it says that it stops the teeth from penetrating as deep, but I don't know how much less it penetrates. And they're $1,500. Now, I don't know that they'd work against a shark that's out to feed, but I think they'd work against a shark that's out to bite somebody on a board. So if I was a surfer, or I knew a surfer, somebody that I knew that surfed that I cared about, I'd be digging up $1,500, because I think that with those attacks, more than not, it's going to help greatly reduce the injury, if that's the case, that it keeps the teeth from going in very deep. Because the attacks on the boards are sometimes they're very, very brutal, like with not Ben Linden, who was the gentleman that had his chest bitten out. Name escapes me right now, but some of them are bad like that, but a lot of them are survivable, where it just goes deep enough and it clips your femoral artery and you're done. So if you have something that'll keep the teeth from going in deeper, I think that's going to help surfers more than anybody else. So it sounds promising to me. They're about 4 millimeters thick that I've seen. It's a neoprene wetsuit that has the Shark Stop on it, but I haven't looked into they have other weaves and other type of suits. So I think that's what we're going to get into, as being the most effective things out there. And then a lot of people have been bringing up, of course, it makes complete sense to try to use orca sounds to clear beaches and things like that. I mean, if you could use orca sounds from the beach, people could be in the water all day long and not have to worry about a shark if it's afraid of that sound. So it's something promising to look into, but you never know. I mean, they already went ahead and recorded the sounds of breaching great whites and played them back to other great whites to see the reaction for it. So I would think that they could go ahead and do that research pretty easily with the orcas and the great whites. You just have to go to a place to do it. And with those shark suits, with all of them, that's where I would test them out. I would test them out with surfers, because that's where you're going to find out the most if it's actually going to help or not. I think you'll see a big difference in damage to a surfer, because that's where it's least out to get you as far as a feeding event. So I think surfers is a good place to go with that. But like I said, if it does keep the teeth from going in a deep, even half as much, it's well worth the $1,500. And if I surfed, I definitely would have one. So that's what I have to say about that. We're going to head over to France here, to southern France, to Passade. And this is back in 1884, unknown name of this woman. Now, two fishermen come back. They had got themselves a shark. They harpooned it, and it had itself a fatal wound. They brought it into shore. They took it into their hut, into the hut that they live in. So they took it into this hut and they hung it up. And now the two fishermen are outside dealing, probably putting away their gear and all that thing, when they start hearing a ruckus inside. And they finally open the door up and they see that the shark that they thought was dead had recovered so much it had flipped its way down onto the floor, and it was biting at everything. It was trying to get the dog. It was trying to get the two kids that were in there, and his wife lost her leg. The shark took her leg, trying biting all these people in half. It's a 10-foot shark. So now the shark's tail hits the wall, knocking over the lantern and extinguishes the lantern. Now they're in the pitch black inside there with a 10-foot shark in there. Now the two men are trying to open the door and they can't get the door open from the inside. The wife is still trying to shield the kids. Another fisherman hears this mess going on, and he shows up, and when he gets there he sees what's going on, and he goes to the window, and the first thing he does is extracts the two children out of the window. Then he goes around and busts open that door with the help of the two gentlemen inside. They get that door open, and the shark seems to be under the table, the kitchen table, and it had chewed through a couple of the legs already, and it was just going to town on things. And as soon as they got that door open, the shark started to flop its way out the door, and he took and stabbed it in the eye with a harpoon. Shark kept going, got its way all the way out, started searching for the sea, and he was finally able to stab it a second time in the other eye. And that was the end of the 10-foot shark, but his wife lost her leg. Kids were terrified to death, and I haven't heard about what happened to the dog. I'm a little worried about that one, because you know how animals are with another animal around. But you know, it's just a crazy story. 1884 in France, and I think that's our first France attack. We might have had one that we covered before, but just a crazy story, a good one to end the show on. I hope we'll be back in a couple more days, but always remember, if you do go into that water, you are much more afraid of those sharks than they are of you.